Tuesday at 2 o'clock. This week, we're carrying on with our Fresh Start 2022 wellness guide. So week 4 of a 6-part series. And this week is all about planning for the future, getting prepared, making sure that you're organized, right? Because now that we've set all the goals, kind of dreamed about our future vision, got all the goals laid out, we make sure they fit in our week. Now we've got to stay consistent, right? And we've got to have a plan. We've got to be organized about how we're going to stay consistent. Remember, we talked 2 weeks ago about the idea of 1% improvements every single week. So if you're getting 1% better by the end of the year, it's actually a 37% improvement from what you did or where you're at the start of the year. And so how do you get there? How do you keep showing up week after week after week? How do you make sure that you're consistent about going after your goals or your habits, even when life gets in the way? And so that's what we're going to cover today. And so the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the idea of the gap versus the gain. So if you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can see the screen share on the side, and you can see 2 diagrams. And on the left, you have where you start, you have your goal, and then you have your ideal. And this is kind of where we got to with our remarkable life exercise we did at the very beginning, right? I challenge you guys to dream big and think about as much as you possibly could. And from there, kind of extrapolate back down to this year and what you're going to accomplish. And so those are your 3 levels: your remarkable life, your big picture future. The goals are hopefully where you're going to accomplish in the next year. And then your start is where you are right now. And so what happens for a lot of us is life gets in the way. We get busy. There's other commitments that come up we didn't expect. And when that happens, all of a sudden we start to get discouraged, right? Because we compare ourselves from where we're at currently to what we were hoping to accomplish, and we're not there yet, right? We haven't accomplished the goal, and so we get discouraged. And so what the gap versus gain model is showing you is that what about if you turned around and looked over your shoulder instead of always looking ahead to what you haven't accomplished and celebrate what you've already done? Pretty cool, right? All of a sudden, regardless of how much or how little you've done, there's always something to celebrate. And there's tons of research that shows that gratitude and positive mindset thinking like this is actually really beneficial for giving you the courage, the strength, the confidence you need to keep showing up week after week after week. So, for example, your goal is to work out 3 times a week and you only did 2. And so, oh man, I missed my goal. Like, I just got to scrap this whole thing and give up. It's not going to happen. But you look back and see, 2 weeks ago, I didn't work out at all. And this week I worked out twice. Like, that's so much better. Let's just keep building on that momentum next week. And so it sounds like a kind of silly thing because it really just is a shift in perspective, but that shift in perspective can really make all the difference. And so this idea comes into play in the first thing that we're going to talk about this week, which is a weekly review. And so I think this is probably the most important component. Once you've got your goals laid out, you make sure they fit in their week. How do you actually make sure that you get them done? Because we've all been there where we've set goals and then, a month later, 2 months later, we forgot about them or we've fallen off with them. The weekly review is really, I believe, the secret, the thing that most people look over or skip that gets you showing up consistently, working towards those goals. Is checking in with yourself, making sure that you have a plan for what your next action is going to be this week and that it's on your calendar, right? So just having a time blocked for working on my new project and not actually having action steps doesn't really help that much, right? Because then if somebody else needs your help during that time, it's easy to say yes and break that commitment because you don't actually have anything planned for it. And then even for yourself, the time rolls around, it's open in your schedule and clear, and you just surf around on your phone or something because there's nothing written down. What are your next action steps, right? And so the weekly review is the best way that I know of to take care of it. So again, on Facebook and YouTube, you can look, there's the 3 categories. And step 1 is obviously just the big wins. What happened? What went really well? So instead of focusing on what's still left to do, take 2 seconds, look back over your shoulder and see what you've accomplished. Celebrate that win. Even if it's just for 2 minutes, there's something that you've done that's worth celebrating today, and taking the time to do that in your weekly review, super valuable. From there, what went well? So again, digging into those wins and seeing where was the success, what happened that went really well. If your goal is to run every week, did you put out your clothes the night before? Is that something that went really well for you? If your goal is to eat a healthy lunch every day, did you meal prep on Sunday? Was that the thing that really greased the wheels and got things rolling? Take a minute to reflect back on the week that you had and find out which things worked well so you can do more of them in the coming weeks. And finally, the last question on this list that I've shared with you is just kind of what can you do better? Where can you improve? And this one important as well, right? There's going to be things that don't go well. And so while it's good to look back and celebrate all the success that we've had, if our goal is to get to that achievement, that milestone, then we have to continually make improvements and keep getting better at whatever we set out to do. And so this is the point as well, where you kind of reflect and analyze and make sure that you're on track for that. And then finally, the last portion of this, after you've kind of done your reflection piece, is just pull out the calendar and see what's coming up. Or is there one-off things like parent-teacher interview or something like that this week that's going to get in the way of your ideal week? Do you need to rejig your schedule in some way for something coming up? right? Important questions to ask. What are your next actions? So for all your things that you have blocked on your ideal week, for all your different goals, all your different projects, do you have an action step that you're taking this week? If not, think about it. What do you need to be doing this week to move that forward? What's your very next action that you take? Make sure you write that down on this weekly check-in, on this reflection opportunity, so that you know what you're doing when the time comes, right? So very, very valuable. And so whether that happens, a lot of people can do it on a Friday night, kind of at the end of the week before the weekend begins. Maybe you do it on Sunday night or sometime on Sunday before the week really gets going. I find it best to do it on Monday morning. Just get up that little bit earlier, 10 or 15 minutes earlier, and then kind of give yourself that clarity. So you're not cutting into your weekend. Hopefully that's time that you've set aside for yourself, for your friends, for your family. And on Monday morning, get up, do this weekly reflection, this weekly review, and that way you hit the ground running. You know when you walk out the door on Monday morning that you've got everything in place that you need to have this week be one of the 52 weeks that consecutively follow each other to be successful and move yourself towards your goals and your habits. So in addition to that, the other thing that I wanted to talk to you guys about today, just to kind of tie off some loose ends before we jump into our second to last topic next week, is the big three lists. Right? Because we sat down, we did our remarkable life. We kind of dreamed about where we want to be in 5 years' time. From there, we talked about the 10 domains, right? And all the different facets of our life that come together to make a balanced and healthy life. And I challenge you to come up with objectives, milestones, pieces, little chunks of that story, of that remarkable life 5 years from now that fit into each of the domains, each of the 10 domains. And so all of a sudden you have all of these different suggestions of all these different things that you need to do. And then I said you can only pick 8 simple goals or habits for the whole year. And so if you have a complex goal, 4 of them are eaten up right away just by that one goal. So what do you do with all the other ones, right? That was another question that I got as I had this big brainstorm session. I came up with all these ideas and then I could only pick a couple. What do I do with the rest, right? Is that all just a waste of time, that beginning reflection at the beginning? And no, absolutely not. It's not a waste of time. And so this is where a little bit more extra organization comes into play. And these lists, I think you can bring back out in your weekly review as well, if it's something you're interested in. This idea I got from David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, and really, really resonate and love the idea. Firstly, is that he has a project list and a next action list. So the project list would be kind of just a main list of all your goals or your habits. Those could be your projects. And so you have that written out and you review them every week to make sure that you're still keeping track of all the different things that are going on, because some of them are going to be quarterly, some of them are going to be annually. So what should be on your calendar every week for your current life right now? Right? Those are your projects. Then the other one is the next action list. So what are you doing this week, right now, the next time you get to work on that project to keep it moving forward? So the idea is that there's always a next action list, and the great time to do that is obviously at the weekly review. Sit down and see what you've accomplished in the previous week, make action plans for the coming week, and then make sure it's all relating back to that big picture. Show yourself that you're continuing to do that 1% improvement and move towards the goal. Now, finally, the last one, I think this is the one that's the most valuable, is the someday maybe list, right? So this is where all that extra goes into, all the things that you thought or you need to have accomplished in order to have that remarkable life you dreamed of 5 years from now, but didn't make it onto your goal list for this year, goes onto the someday maybe list. And so you can have just one big one where you dump everything onto it. But as well, it's kind of a neat idea to think about chunking it into different categories. So maybe certain restaurants you want to visit, certain movies you want to see, certain trips you want to take, certain skills that you want to learn, certain adventures that you want to take, whatever it may be, right? Yeah, I think you can think of a few easy categories. Maybe they line up with the life domains. That would be a simple way to break them out, right? Different someday maybes for each of the different domains: spiritual, financial, marital, etc. Think about all those things, lay them out in front of you. And so in that way, the next time that you have the opportunity to come back and do goal setting, maybe at the end of this year, or you're finished all your goals early and you want to come back and do some more, you have an opportunity to add more into your life, then all of a sudden you have this list written down. And again, when it comes to restaurants, when it comes to trips, when it comes to movies, it's really fun to have those lists written down, because then the next time it's like, oh, what do you want to watch tonight? You've already, the last time somebody said something to you, you took a note of it, you took it from that sticky note, put it in your someday maybe. So now you have it written down somewhere and you can go back to it, right? So it just kind of wastes less time kind of searching around for all the things that you've already thought of. You use that brainstorming time productively. You came up with a list of things. Now it's time to store that list somewhere so you can come back to it and use it effectively in the future. Okay, so 2 takeaways here from this week. You've got your ideal week, you've got your goals and your habits, you've got your remarkable life. You've done all 3 of those steps. Week 4, now take it and consolidate it into a weekly check-in. whether it's Friday night, Sunday evening, Monday morning, show up and review everything that's going on in the past week, celebrate your wins, and then make sure you're ready for the week coming up. You have your next actions laid out. And then you can look at that someday maybe list too, right? And just make sure that you know they're there. Maybe you have some time blocked off to help around the house. And so if you have a list of projects about renovations around the house, pull that out and pick the one that's most relevant, and then off you go, right? Instead of always having to kind of scratch your head about how to fill the time, you have the someday maybe list to fill in. So really, really valuable and really helpful, I find, because that way you're not putting this brainstorming efforts to waste, right? I think a lot of people feel that way. They came up with all these ideas, and then where do they go? Add them to one of the 3 lists, and then that way you can come back to them when you're ready to take on more in your life. So that's going to wrap up things for now. So again, everything that we talked about today is in the PDF workbook, and so there's a link down below in the YouTube and Facebook videos, or if you're on Instagram, just follow the link in the bio and get that workbook so you can follow along with the worksheets that I laid out for you guys. Next week, talking about the messy middle, right? And this is, I guess, maybe the one thing that I'm most excited to share with you guys. The thing that I'm looking forward to the most is just the idea of like what happens when you get discouraged, what happens when you get when life gets in the way, right? We've talked about, especially this week, the check-ins and the lists and all the different things, the safeguards you can put in place to make sure you keep moving forward. But some days you're just not going to feel like you want to. Right? And what do we do then? What happens when you get really discouraged or bummed or experience a really challenging setback? Then how do we stay consistent about achieving our goals? That is the conversation for next week. So as always, thank you guys very much for your time, for your effort. And we'll see you back here next week. Hopefully you've got all those other pieces done and you're ready to jump into the messy middle, because it's a fun conversation. I'm very much looking forward to having it with you guys. So have a good week, and we'll see you here, same time, same place, Wednesday at 2:00.